Good morning, afternoon, or good evening viewers, depending on when you're watching this video. So today I'm going to give you guys a movie review. And today's movie review is The Dark Knight Rises. I'm just going to go ahead and say this is the best movie I've ever seen. So now let's go ahead and look over at what the critics are saying about this movie, because there have been some pretty negative reviews about this. I noticed that a lot of the critics were analyzing the soundtrack more so than the motion picture itself, mostly just like the little tidbits about, what Hans Zimmer put into this. A lot of people are analyzing the soundtrack that Hans Zimmer wrote and just saying, Hans Zimmer should have just used his drum kit for the entire soundtrack, or maybe he did, which I think is really a really mean thing to say, because they don't have any education about music, nor about, they don't have any knowledge about it. They weren't educated in the matter. They were educated in film, not so much soundtracks, but in film, and the cinematography aspect of it. There's cinematography studios that are talking about the soundtrack here. Excuse me. So, whenever they say something like that, it's just like, you guys don't know anything about music, and all you're doing is complaining about the music. You're not even analyzing the movie, the cinematography, or anything like that. All they're saying was just the music, which really upset me. So I'm going to go ahead and explain why The Dark Knight Rises is getting some negative reviews, and it's for the same exact reason that the Twilight Saga gets some positive reviews. It's because there are stupid people who are reviewing some of these movies. The Twilight Saga films are just terrible films, and anybody who does not see that is really just blind. Some people are just like, oh, I love it because of the story, and it's like, okay, but did you not notice the terrible acting, the lack of emotion throughout the acting, and the story that doesn't make any sense? Did you not notice that at all? Or, and so, they make, the stupidest, reviews about it, and they don't even notice, half the stuff. They're just so blind to it. Same with Dark Knight Rises. So many people are blind to how good it was, and they just focused on things that they didn't even know anything about, and they made up excuses like the soundtrack whole idea. They didn't even know anything about music, yet they decided that they want to pin the whole problem on the music and give it a 30%. It's ridiculous what some of these people gave this movie. So now I'm going to give you my review of the movie, and I'm going to analyze each little bit of it. So we're going to go ahead and start out with the acting. We're going to go ahead and start by assessing Anne Hathaway playing Catwoman. At the very beginning of the film, she started out, seemed really like Anne Hathaway. Didn't really seem any different than any other movies that she was in. So really for me, I was just like, is she really going to pull this role off at all? And then as the movie kept going, maybe 20 minutes, 10 minutes later, she suddenly becomes Catwoman. It's just like, wow, that was incredible. She just switched into Catwoman. She went from playing Anne Hathaway, this innocent, actress that everybody loves, to all of a sudden just Catwoman. And it was just like, wow, that was incredible. And so she does an amazing job as Catwoman. I'm just gonna say Alfred Pennyworth is gonna make you cry, and that's all I'm gonna say. Gary Oldman was awesome in this film, as he is in every film. He played Commissioner Gordon. He did it amazingly. He did bring out a very different side of Commissioner Gordon. Not really very different. He just brought out that side in Commissioner Gordon that we've been waiting for, that we've been kind of seeing him, willing to go. In the very first film, we saw him, taking the Batmobile and just going crazy with it, willing to break a few rules. And in the second film, he kind of tightened down on the rules a bit. And in this one, he breaks a few more rules. He's willing to be not bad guy, but a vigilante as well to help out Batman. Next is Christian Bale, who plays Bruce Wayne / Batman. I can't picture anybody else playing Bruce Wayne or Batman other than Christian Bale. He just does such a phenomenal job. He really just plays the role. He is the role. He really does become the role. He remains Batman that we've always known throughout this Dark Knight trilogies. And that's another thing that gave a lot of negative reviews. People saying that this isn't a Batman film. It's just like, were you at the same movie I was at? Because, I'm pretty sure I saw Batman throughout the movie, through most of the movie anyways. And I kind of understand why they would say that if, whenever, you're a diehard comic fan and you're stick to the comics, and they don't like Nolan's perception of it. I can kind of understand that, but they're giving it 0% and stuff like that because they say it's not a Batman film, it's just some crime film, and it's not. It's, it's Nolan's take on Batman, which is a somewhat different take than the comics. It does have some legitimacy to the comics, but not much, but it still does. And I think that people don't recognize that this is Nolan's film, and it's not necessarily whoever the author of Batman was. It's not necessarily his film, so let Nolan have his take with it. The next actor we're going to recognize or analyze is Morgan Freeman playing Lucius Fox. He really does stay the same as he was in the previous films. Very Lucius Fox, like, you know, doesn't really change much at all. He does get in the action a little bit more in this film, so we do see a little bit more of him in this movie, which is kind of nice. The next person on the list is Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing Officer Blake. And I think he gets almost the most screen time out of any other character or actor in this film. He's always, I mean, I think I've seen him on almost every scene, especially towards the end. Like, you really see him in everything. So, which was really cool. So, I mean, he does a phenomenal job, though, so, you know, kudos to him. So he's, you know, worthy of being in every scene, because he does such a good job. Just an amazing job. Last but not least, we have Tom Hardy playing Bane. And Tom Hardy is personally my favorite actor, for me. I mean, I love all his movies. I love his acting abilities. He's just an amazing actor, and he's a really nice guy, too. So in this movie, he plays Bane, who's the main bad dude, and he does an amazing job. Now, a lot of people, they'll talk about his eyes, and they're not lying. I mean, whenever you have, like, this portion of his face cut off, then, I mean, all you can really see is his eyes. And, you know, so whenever you have him just kind of, like, whenever he has, like, his nice moments, you know, whenever he's just, like, when Gotham is ashes, you have my permission to die. I mean, you have, you only have to look at his eyes, because his mouth's all covered up. And, you know, his voice is great, too, for Bane. Really interesting voice. So whenever you look at his eyes, those eyes have so much character to them and so much depth to them, and so you can really see so much emotion, like, especially in the fight scenes. I mean, you can, like, just see him, like, leering straight at Batman. I mean, it's just like, whoa, back up, buddy. I mean, Bane is up to no good now. Next person I'm going to analyze is Christopher Nolan and his job with the movie. This was a really ambitious movie, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, if anybody could possibly even think about taking this on, it would have to be Christopher Nolan to wrap up his own series, yes, but to also, you know, make such a good movie. It was, you know, it's a hard movie to take on, and he did a great job. Do I think it was full Christopher Nolan potential? No, I don't think so. I think he could have done a little bit of a better job. I'm not saying that he didn't do a great job, though. I think you should definitely go and see it, because he does such a wonderful job with it. But do I think it was at his, you know, at his best? No, it wasn't at 100%. I think he was holding back a little bit. And, you know, if you watch the, previews at the beginning of Dark Knight Rises, you kind of notice something else that he's been working on that looks fantastic. And I'll post a link an annotation link to the trailer itself from the previews. And I'm going to do a trailer analysis of that movie. The main thing in this movie that really struck me, something that really, like, you know, hit hard with me, was the emotions that you feel in this movie. I mean, this movie, it might not be, I mean, it was really just non-stop action. It's super intense throughout the entire movie. Like, you couldn't, like, let go of your seat. I mean, you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, and it was taking all these different twists that you weren't expecting, which is another thing that a lot of critics didn't like. They said it wasn't going where I expected it to go, and I didn't like that it had so many twists. And I'm just like, plot twists are great, because whenever you don't know what's going to happen next, it leaves you in suspense. You're just like, what's going to happen next? And then you see what happens next. And it's incredible. The thing that really won me over for this movie was the emotions. The emotions that you feel in this movie will literally make you cry. Because, I mean, you just, you know, think that it goes back to these scenes from Batman Begins, and it goes to these scenes in Dark Knight, and you just see these, like, little bits that are now relevant. And, I mean, it was just really incredible to be able to see, like, how these, like, tiny little bits and portions of, like, the earlier films played out as a huge portion in this film. Now, something I always say about The Dark Knight, I always say the most philosophical movie I've ever seen is The Dark Knight. Because it's true, I've watched it, like, 20 times now. Especially, I've been, like, rewatching it since Dark Knight Rises to get ready for it, to get pumped for it. And each time I watch it, I see something new, and I see some new philosophical meaning in a line, something like that. I mean, something even as simple as in the beginning, when the poser asks Batman, you know, what's the difference between me and you? And Batman says, I'm not wearing hockey pads. And he's being completely sincere. Yes, it's a joke that was made for the audience, but it's also really something sincere, because he's basically saying, you know, there's nothing different. There's, like, no difference between me and you. Anybody can be Batman. It's a symbol. So the only difference really is I have higher tech stuff, and I am Batman, and you have lower tech stuff. So, I mean, that's, like, really just the only difference, which was, like, what his goal was. But really, that's what makes this film just so incredible, is just those emotions and the symbols, and the symbolism.